Okay, call to order of this meeting of the South Orange Historic Preservation Commission, April 15th. Kathy, can you please give us a roll call?
Yes, Chairman Howell.
Present.
Vice Chairman Barnett.
Present.
Commissioner Marlowe.
Here.
Commissioner Don.
Here.
Commissioner Carter.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Moan.
Here.
Trustee Schnall.
Here.
Commission Counsel Sullivan.
Here.
And Commissioner Langstrom is not present tonight.
Thank you. Meeting notice statement. Adequate notice of this meeting had been provided to the press in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10-4-6. In addition, notice of this meeting was posted in Village Hall and on the village website and has been filed in the office of the village clerk. Official action may be taken. Okay. First up, approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to see March 17th minutes?
Yes, I'd like to ask that for item 3 under pending matters, Old Stone House, that one of the discussion items to memorialize the site was taking it back to its original stone property and maintaining the property as a historic site, which might cost the village far less than taking it down, as that would still be a historic site, and it would still be able to be listed on the state and national register.
Okay, so Kathy, can you add that
Yes, I will make that amendment.
amendment? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other amendments or comments or corrections that anyone else has noticed? Oh, good, good. Bob? Good, no, you're good? All right, down the line. Then motions to approve minutes with amendments.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended by Commissioner Don.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, minutes approved with amendments. All right, first on the list today, all right, so we're going to skip and go, all right, applications to be heard for non-binding review. Case number 2014-02, applicant South Orange Dental Center. Are you present? Please come up.
Good evening. Is this working?
I was going to say, why don't you come up to this?
Can you hear me?
Yes. That
I
one,
can't see you.
I would say we can't see. If you could come up and use the podium on the stage, that
that's
would
good.
be
Okay.
wonderful.
This is what I'm accustomed to when we have a planning board or a zoning board matter. My name is Jerry Friedland. I represent the applicant, and I'm just going to run through a couple of things. I'll make a couple of comments, and then you can be free to ask Dr. Rosemont any questions that you may have, if that's acceptable to you.
Yep.
You have a copy of our zoning board application that was filed in February. We have a final hearing on May the 8th. You also have the copy of our completed HPC addendum, which we filed about a week ago, less than a week ago. And I gave the $20 filing fee to Kathy Cameron, whom I must say was very gracious and cooperative to me throughout the several times we've spoken, and I thank you. I've also submitted copies of the photos of the subject property. I don't know if you had a chance to observe.
They've made it around.
Good, okay. They give a snapshot of all four sides of the property, plus 2 clear photographs of the property on either side of the subject property.
Mr. Friedland, are they in one package? There's one set of, the photographs are all stapled together, right?
Yes,
Okay, because I'm going to, when that comes back, I'm going to have that marked.
I gave you 2.
Yeah, fine. I'm just going to have that marked.
Do you want
for the record.
more?
I'm sorry? No, I just want to mark it. That's
All
all.
right.
So we're going to mark as A1 the photographs that
That's
you
fine.
submitted. Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Our position, the applicant, Dr. Haniel Rosemond, has continuously maintained his dental practice at 481 South Orange Avenue for 19 years. He purchased the property in 2000, and it's been exclusively used. This property has not changed in 55 years. It has always been a dental professional office. My client's practice has fortunately grown over the past several years, and his space is cramped. Now, I've been in there on a number of occasions. I'm not testifying, I'm just making a statement. The waiting area is almost non-existent. There's a couch and one chair. There are 3 employees that sit at a desk in the front with a computer. Everything is squashed together. So they are really in desperate need of expanding the practice. My client's going to testify as to the need for updating the interior. However much detail you want to go into it, he will. And he seeks to utilize the entire front part of this building that's located on Elm Court, which is now vacant. I've indicated in our addendum, in my discussions with council, that there is no expansion or changes to the exterior of this property. The building is going to retain the existing residential character from Elm Court. All we're going to do is spruce up the existing structure and landscaping. We're going to do some painting and freshening up. The building is going to remain unchanged. The plans are really to preserve the integrity of the historic district, and that's what we intend to do. We intend to comply with each and every regulation that you have indicated to us, and my client will represent to you that there will be no disturbance of the historic district in any way at all. Now I've spoken enough. You can ask my questions.
Okay, I have a quick question for you. You just stated, if I'm not, that the property's vacant at the moment? The
No.
Elm Court? Or
There is a residential part
Right.
facing Elm Court. That's vacant. That's the part that Dr. Rosemond wishes to expand, and that's why we have our application before the zoning board.
Okay, because just on a note here, it says, we've written, is the property currently occupied? Has checked yes. That's why I was just kind of like,
Well, it's occupied by a dental practice.
Dental practice or
But it's a
owner?
home
I was
office
gonna-
use going to a professional use, correct? You're going from a home office use to a professional use? Is that the,
exactly.
It has been both.
right?
There was an appellate division case 30 years ago, which the Board of Trustees, they were the appellate body of the zoning board in those days. They refused to allow the continuation of the dental use. They filed an application in lieu of prerogative writ, and Murray Simon, who was a very, very bright judge, reversed it and said that they have an absolute right to use the property. Any other questions?
Nope, that was it.
I have a question.
Oh. Go right ahead.
You mentioned sprucing up the exterior to include painting?
Would you talk a little louder? I'm having problems up here.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if this is on. Okay. You said the exterior work may include painting?
The exterior needs some painting. It's not as attractive as it should be. And Dr. Rosemond intends to spruce it up, to paint the exterior, and to refreshen the landscaping surrounding the entire circumference of the property. And the entrance to the practice will remain on South Orange Avenue. The porch and the door that leads into the residential part will never be open. That's going to be closed.
It sounds as though you're being very conscious of the historic preservation of the district. I just want to make sure we're not considering any neon yellows, any puce, any purple in the paint color selection.
But there are no design guidelines regarding
yeah.
paint, so we really, I don't think we can say anything about, we could suggest, but.
I just want to clarify, I mean,
You got to talk.
I'm fairly sure that it's clear that you don't intend to expand the building at all. It's only,
Not in the least.
okay.
Not by 2 inches. All we're going to do, we're going to keep the footprint as it is. We're going to preserve the integrity of the historic appearance of this building. The only changes and construction to be made are the interior of the structure.
Any other questions for council?
Yeah, this is a professional office in the home, is that what this is? Or is this two separate addresses, or is this a professional office in a home?
It's a professional office now, and it has been for the 19 years that Dr. Rosemont has been there.
But
It's been a professional office, I think, since 1956.
But the professional doesn't live in the home.
What was it?
I'm just confused about like how it's zoned, because a professional office in the home, the person has to live there, and so maybe it's under a grandfathered and older zoning that I'm not familiar with.
It's going to remain. First of all, when we get our variance before the zoning board, hopefully, it's going to remain that way in perpetuity.
Okay. But I guess so. But legally, it's a professional office in the home, or is it classified?
Is somebody living in the house?
My client lived in the house.
Okay.
I think for about 8 or 9 years. He bought a home in West Orange, and it has been the front part, the residential part, has been vacant for 2 years.
2.5.
For about 2 years, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, that's not a Historic Preservation Commission concern, so. Thank you.
Dr. Roseman? I'm done.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello. Could you please state your name for the record?
Hi, my name is Dr. Daniel Roseman. I have a little statement that may allay and address any concerns that you may have as a commission. My name is Dr. Daniel Roseman. I present before you today regarding the property located at 481 South Orange Avenue, South Orange, New Jersey. This has been the location of my dental practice for the last 19 years without interruption. I purchased the practice from Dr. Ronald Nagelberg in 1995. I purchased the building from the estate of the late Dr. Fish, who was the original dentist at the location. This location has been used exclusively as a dental practice for the last 60 years without interruption. I now seek to utilize the front area facing Elm Court, which is now vacant, to better serve our patients. The additional space, which will allow us to do a few things. One, provide improved privacy for our patients during treatment and consultation as per current government privacy laws. Two, it'll provide adequate space for utilization of our current dental technologies, which include lasers, CAD/CAM, and panoramic X-ray technologies. Three, it'll provide additional space to expand our sterilization, storage, and computer areas. Four, it'll just create a space for more efficient workflow. The above changes are to be in compliance with current and/or future anticipated standards related to dental practice. Please note, this entire presentation is predominantly interior expansion and renovation. The exterior portion of this project is repair and painting of the exterior. There will be no changes to the exterior residential character facing Elm Court. The ingress and egress of the office will remain solely on South Orange Avenue. The overall premise of this project is to maintain and exceed the compliance of my practice with today's standard of dental care, while maintaining the existing historic appearance to comply with the Commission and with no intent on disturbing the historic district in any way. Our application will preserve the integrity of the historic district. As a part of this community for the last 19 years, I have a true appreciation and respect for the historic district. Given the above facts, I would respectfully request that this Honorable Commission encourage and endorse the plan set forth in our application, as we actually intend to enhance the integrity of the district. Thank you. So I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Doctor. At this time, I'll open it up for any questions from the panel here. Anyone?
And we are, I like so we're not painting it yellow and.
I just have one question. I know it's really not for the Historic Society per se, but, I mean, Commission, but how many offices?
Operatories?
Yeah.
Right, currently we have 2.5 because our panoramic X-ray unit is actually in one operatory, which is not ideal.
Right.
We're looking to go to 6, and the reason being is some patients need recuperation time before we dismiss them, so that is our ideology behind having more operatories as well.
Okay.
Our operatories are so close now that if I'm having a conversation in a room with one patient, you can hear them, and that violates privacy, and nobody would want their conversation with their healthcare provider to be heard next door. And just due to the nature of our office, that's what occurs no matter what we do with music and things like that to enhance the patient's privacy.
Okay, again, any questions for the doctor? Anyone? No? No? Commissioners?
I'd like to make a motion that we make no comment on this application because it's completely interior work.
I'll second.
I have one question. Again, back to the professional office in the home. When the dental office or whenever it was became a dental office, I'm assuming it became a professional office in the home, which meant the professional lived there, and which meant there was a certain square footage that you had to have parking for this professional, and then I believe up to 2 employees could be there. So unless it's changed zoning, I'm just.
Well, that's actually why we're in front of the zoning board to ask for an application review, because dentistry has changed significantly in the last 60 years. There's a lot more things that are required of a dental practice and practitioner to have available for their patients. So some of the standards that were available in 60 years ago, which is 1940, is not the same today. Some of the things are sterilization.
I think I might be able to clarify this a little bit. I'm just looking at the application.
Yep.
The application before the Zoning Board of Adjustment is asking for a use variance because offices are not permitted in the RA 60. Only professional offices in the home are allowed.
Right.
So that's essentially the relief that they're asking for from the Zoning Board,
Thank
is
you.
to have just professional office only without anybody living in it.
Got it.
So
Okay,
really-
that's clear.
that's
Thank
really
you.
what they're
Thank you.
Counsel, that's the gravamen
Yeah.
of our ZBA application.
And just, I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this. Are there any other homes in Montrose that are office only?
Office only, homes?
There's one next door.
There's office only on South Orange Avenue. They're not homes
Okay.
only.
One next door, which is owned by Seton Hall, the pink one.
Got it.
The pink
Okay.
one that was
Okay.
in there.
Let's say there's
Right.
another
It's
dental
actually
office.
green, but
Green,
it's
yeah.
owned by Seton Hall,
Okay.
and it was previously owned by
There's other professional
OBGYN.
buildings
Got
going
it.
up South Orange Ave.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay,
There's a motion.
there's a motion. Could you please restate your motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we have no comment on this application as it's all interior work and it does not affect the historic district.
I'll second that
And so
motion.
then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll second the motion.
All right, so then we would write a letter to the zoning board advising that the commission has no comment on the application because it has interior changes on.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct, so we need a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Thank you.
Again.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? There you go.
Thank you very much.
Dr.
welcome.
Roseman, I
Thank you.
would like to congratulate you on a thriving practice, and thank you for taking us into consideration in your planning and asking our opinion.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the work that you guys do too as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Council, I would like to address the matter, when we have a simple application like this, that why somebody has to come to the point of having to come in front of the commission and take the time to have their attorney present. Is there a way to have a simple review process for something, for applications
I think
such
it's
as
valid.
this?
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, because if this were the first and the only
Okay.
home in Montrose they were asking, is it fair to make it 100%
Okay.
offices? I think it's a valid question to bring before the HPC.
Okay.
It's in the ordinance now. I mean, I would say that there are ways in which planning boards in other towns simplify the process through the creation of a technical subcommittee. But we don't, I mean, that's maybe something you could look at with changes to the ordinance. But right now, the ordinance requires them to
Okay,
come here.
so
Okay.
that's the only way we can
And I
handle
think
it.
for this,
Okay.
for this particular question, if it were another type of business other than a dentist office, you know, there might be some concerns, you know,
Okay.
regardless of how the exterior looks, but.
Good points, thanks.
All right.
Yeah. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Okay. All right. Next, application to be heard tonight for non-binding review, 2014-01, Seton Hall University, premise 425, 445 Scotland Road. No.
Exhibits.
Okay. Witness. This witness.
Okay. Just note for the record that she's stepping down. Okay.
Kathy, can you note? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council.
Good evening. Kevin Coakley, law firm of Connell Foley in Roseland, on behalf of Seton Hall University. As we understand it, the board received a notice from Chairman Reeves of the zoning board asking for the committee's advisory opinion regarding this matter. It's a zoning.
Speak into the mic, or
Not-
move the
not
mic a
picking
little
up.
more.
It's a zoning use variance application that's scheduled for May 8th before the zoning board. The application seeks a use variance to, in a sense, continue the prior use, but also to expand it in modest ways. There is a minor expansion of the building, the high school building that is now vacant. And it seeks a couple of bulk variances with respect to that, having to do with lot coverage and one other one, but not of great consequence. The building has been vacant for a number of years, and Seton Hall intends to use it for educational-related purposes in connection with its medical school or school of medical professionals, and that'll be further described by Mr. Garbini, who is the vice president of the university, who'll speak a few words about the condition of the property and Seton Hall's proposed use. So there will be an upgrade of the facility. Now, the main impetus of this committee has to do with the Graves House, which is a historic structure which we'll describe to you, which has been essentially gutted on the inside. Seton Hall is a contract purchaser of the property, is buying it, essentially as is. But that has been gutted. There is no plans right now to change the exterior of the Graves House, so that wouldn't be involved in this application. Ultimately, the site plan application and the variance is to allow use of that property for, that is the Graves House, for office workers connected with the university. So there's about approximately room for about 19 employees there, and so there would be parking provided for those 19 employees once that part of the facility is improved internally. As I noted, there are small changes in the high school building, and there's additional parking being provided in order to facilitate the use. So there are two witnesses I have this evening to further elaborate on what I said, and that would be Mr. Garbini from the university and Mr. Quinn, the site engineer for the project. And I believe you have the site plans that were previously provided to the Board of Adjustment. That was back many months ago, and since then the plans have been revised in certain respects to accommodate the comments made by the zoning board's planner and engineer. So they're not materially different, but there are differences, and Mr. Quinn will describe those differences. The new plans have not yet been filed with the zoning board. They'll be filed probably within the next week, 10 days before the 8th when the hearing is to take place. But we'll describe those changes so you have that that knowledge. We would like your positive recommendation, advisory recommendation for this application. We think it's a good use of the property that continues its prior use in substantial respects, and has the effect of preserving the main historic attribute there of the Gray's house. There's no plans of the university to demolish that, as I think that may have been the direction it was going previously. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to try to answer them. If not, call Mr. Garbini.
Any commissioners have any questions?
I had sent you some questions. Did we ever get a response on those questions?
I forwarded the questions, and I'm sure that Mr. Coakley, through his witnesses, is going to provide answers to the few questions that we had, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I remember one was landscaping and the...
I think you answered one of them about what the plans are for the Graves Mansion, that you really, at this point, you really don't have plans. So.
Yeah, we don't have, we haven't done internal plans as to how that would be laid out, but the plan is to have office use of that property and get site plan approval for that, and then ultimately, as time goes on, to use the interior for that purpose.
The last question was about the deed that was illegible and there was a missing page.
No, they forwarded a new deed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have a complete deed now.
Okay.
Yeah, they did. They said that.
Okay. I didn't get it.
Yeah, there was one page that was missing, I think, and they did send us back another.
Yeah, these pages are missing, but the deeds are totally illegible, so the...
Yeah, well, that was the only one that was legible, so that page was missing.
They go back
Only
about
legible,
140 years, yeah.
Yeah, I know, I've been down to the Hall of Records.
I have a question, and your witnesses may address this, so stop me if it's going
go
to be
ahead.
addressed. But we had heard testimony from one of the sisters, Sister Joan, that the some of the historic fixtures from the inside of the mansion had been put in storage, and she was aware of their location. Is there a plan to incorporate
You'd
those
have to ask
back
Mr.
in?
Garbini that question.
Okay.
He's really been...
I figured it would come later.
Okay, then, any other questions?
Just one question, and I apologize if this was in materials before, but is there a specific use plan for the ballroom itself as the part of the Graves Mansion in terms of the functionality of the school?
I don't know that there's any particular plans with respect to the ballroom. I mean, in general, there's a plan to use the house for office use.
Yeah, I'm just inquiring
I
about the
don't know
ballroom.
the answer to that question.
Okay.
I have one question. Is there any intention, will there be residents? Will anybody be staying over? And it also gets to what do we think the hours of the building might be?
Will there be People who will live there, is that your question? No.
The question is A, that, and then B is what are the expected hours of the use?
The hours would be similar to the university's hours. There are students who come in the late afternoon and stay on into the evening.
The letter indicates that the latest class starts at 6:30, so I don't know how long classes run.
Is there any
Probably run to
plan,
about 9 o'clock would be a fair estimate of that.
are there any plans to have, I think what Commissioner was getting at is that, are there any plans to have residential hospitality facilities inside for visiting, people visiting the university?
Residential facilities?
Who might be staying overnight?
No.
Okay.
No.
Any other questions from council? If not, we'll hear your first witness.
Okay, Mr. Garbini.
Yeah, let's have this.
Okay, for this portion here, we're going to have your witness sworn in.
Okay, that's a good idea with this witness.
That's a real vote of confidence.
Yeah, nice.
And so it starts.
Mr. Garbini, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? So
I do.
Right. Can you state your name and address, please?
Dennis Garbini, 10 Woodland Avenue, Denville, New Jersey.
Thank
And
you.
your position with the university?
I'm the Vice President for Administration.
Thank you.
So as Mr. Coakley has indicated, our interest in the property principally is focused in the, on the 40,000 square foot school. It's our intention to, in fact, move our graduate school of medicine there, which would include, that's the school that trains OTs, PTs, physician assistants, and sports medicine graduate students. It is, the building, we'll need to make some accommodations for the building, so plus one of the additions that Mr. Coakley referenced would be to put a elevator tower in the back, in the alcove in the U shape of the back, so that would provide handicap access for multiple levels. The other addition is which we'll be talking to the zoning board about, is there's one story that is a flat, has a flat roof. It's only one level. There's some issues with that roof, and that got us thinking, as we needed to address the issues with that roof, that we could also pick up some square footage by putting a additional level on that. When you see pictures of that, it's seamless from the neighborhood's perspective, and it's kind of embedded in the middle of the property. I think for your particular interest is that of the Graves house. You've seen, I believe you have packages and the current condition of the Graves house. Obviously, the sisters had planned on demolition, and what you're seeing there is what's left of a building that was prepared for demolition, and including opening walls and so forth to strip out any asbestos and so forth. So the house is going to need a lot of work. The one room that remains of interest is the ballroom. It has that interesting ceiling, and in fact, as was mentioned, the sisters have pulled out some materials which our folks have gone up and looked at, and it appears that the light fixtures that were in the ballroom and sconces along the wall, and then also in photo number 8 on the stair banisters, there's a
new upholstery.
Yeah, and there's a light fixture that would go there. There's also a piece of pieces of, remaining of the fireplace. As you walked in the front door, I think there's another image, you see what was stripped off the wall around the fireplace, which is bricked up. That remains there. The Tiffany stained glass is gone, and basically that was all that we found that the sisters still had.
Well, that's wonderful and encouraging to hear that the light fixtures are still there, because they were pretty incredible.
Now, I don't know if they looked exactly like the ones that were in the pictures that were.
The original pictures,
But
right.
they obviously are, older.
Right.
And it's a bit of antiquity there.
Yeah.
And I think they're consistent with the ceiling. To answer one of your questions regarding our use of that space, the one area that we know when we do plan, and obviously our primary and our initial focus is going to be to, once we acquire this, we're planning to invest a significant amount of money in bringing the school online, which will then, of course, be a revenue source for us as well. Mm-hmm. But the house remains a question. The one thing that is and this is an iterative process, but our plan is to have the offices in the building at the moment on the upper stairs. The ballroom obviously has become a function room of sorts, and the university may hold some events there. It's not a very large space, so it couldn't be huge events, just small cocktail parties and maybe some fundraising events. So I know there was some interest from the neighbors, maybe the society commission here to perhaps access that from time to time as well. So on the exterior of the house, I don't want to disappoint you, but we may not maintain the blue aluminum siding. But we will have to evaluate that. We don't know what's underneath that. We haven't found any pictures. And since the building isn't ours to pry it up, we can't speak to what the plan is.
It did have shingle that was in quite good shape and of varying textures. I don't remember the exact patterns, but it would be.
Cedar shingle?
I believe so, yeah.
Probably would have been asphalt shingle.
It was definitely original shingle. I mean, whether it was not asphalt shingle.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. There must be a reason that.
My understanding was that the sisters had been told that this was a more maintenance-free approach and that they didn't want to continue painting the structure, so that's why they went to the vinyl siding.
That's about 80% of New Jersey, by the way, has vinyl or aluminum over shingles. So very typical type of, unfortunate type of remediation.
Right. And the rest of the plans on the exterior, which is our next speaker will address, is landscaping. In 1968, when I came to South Orange, I remember seeing that building, and not about the school. I have to admit, I didn't notice the house. It always was a very sophisticated and well-manicured site, and it was something that's always been in the back of my mind since '68 as a place that might be of interest. The sisters, of course, were not interested in talking to us, but here we are. So the foundation shrubbery around the school now is overgrown, and I think that's going to need attention. And then, of course, the rest of the landscaping discussion, I think, will center around screening property as for parking issues and, and also protecting the surrounding homes from, views of the other things that we're planning to do in the back.
Are there any questions for Mr. Gemming? Sure. No, none at this moment?
Anything about the aluminum siding?
Well, thank you very much for your
Okay.
testimony here today. We
Thank you.
appreciate it very much. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Quinn, correct?
Yes. So each other in Elizabeth.
Yeah, we were in Elizabeth the other night, yes.
Yes,
that's
sir.
right. Mr. Quinn, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, sir.
All right, state your name and your business affiliation, please.
Sure. It's Thomas J. Quinn, business address 328 Park Avenue, Scotch Plains, New Jersey.
And I'll do Mr. Coakley's job. Are you a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, sir.
Have you been accepted as an engineer with an engineering expertise by the land use boards in the state of New Jersey?
Dozens and dozens of them, yes, sir.
I would recommend, Mr. Chairman, that you accept Mr. Quinn's testimony as an expert in engineering.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are the,
I was doing a clerical task over
yes,
there.
that's right. Are you, are the documents that you're handing around now identical to plans that have been submitted, or are they revisions?
No, no, the plans I have on the board here are identical to the plans that are being passed around.
Okay.
These represent the revisions that are going back to the zoning board that are not part of the package you were originally provided with.
Okay. So then, why don't we mark the site plan as A1 and the lighting and landscape plan as A2? All right.
Okay, Mr. Quinn, probably the best way to proceed would be to walk the members of the committee around the site.
I'm sorry, they're flashing a light. What does that mean?
Means, can you move your microphone up
A bit
closer
closer,
to
okay.
you?
Or I can maybe use this one here, and you can use that one. Maybe the best way to proceed would be just to walk through the changes that are being made from the site as it exists now to what Seton Hall expects it to be if the board gives approval.
Sure. Okay, so the existing site is about 5 acres. It's bordered in this quad area by Montrose Avenue, Vaux Avenue, Stewart Place in Scotland. In the existing condition, there is a roughly 40,000 square foot building, the old school building, which is located near the intersection of Montrose and Scotland. Then there's the Graves House, the old convent building that you heard talk about. That's located in the south central portion of the site, adjacent to Scotland Road. There is a parking lot, roughly 50-stall parking lot, located behind the old school facility. And lastly, there is a large tennis court that is located adjacent to Stewart Place, also located adjacent to the residential zone district. In the proposed condition, you heard Mr. Garbini talk about modest additions to the school building. Those are represented by this small area in the courtyard here, which is really an accessible access that's being created. They're in the shaded area here, located in the north portion of the building. That shaded area represents the second-story addition that you heard about. That's the existing one-story portion of the building that will be bumped up. The rear parking lot is to be expanded from what its condition is now. We are also creating 2 small satellite lots adjacent to Stewart Place near the intersection of Scotland and Stewart. We are essentially widening the existing driveway into Scotland. If you've been through this site, it's old school design. A lot of the aisles don't comply, the parking stalls don't comply, the entrance drives would not comply with today's zoning ordinances and design standards. So we're bringing the site into functional compliance. So the Scotland Road Drive is being expanded and widened for two-way access. The existing drive out to Vose is being rationalized, expanded, and lengthened a little bit so we can reduce the slope of that driveway, which is very precipitous currently. We're relocating the existing egress that's very close to the intersection of Stewart and Scotland. We're moving that about 80 feet back away from the intersection towards Vose to give a little bit of distance between the exiting traffic and traffic on that road. We're also eliminating the one long circuitous driveway that currently access, again, from near the corner of Montrose in Scotland, probably too close to an intersection for today's comfort. That whole drive is being eliminated because it really serves no function, and emergency vehicles can't utilize that. And its location, the driveway location, is really not very propitious for any kind of access. So that's all being removed. Obviously, the tennis court is being removed adjacent to the parking lot area. We are also creating, because we're increasing impervious surfaces, and about 3/4 of an acre of impervious surface will be created by this application. Because we're increasing that, and we're what's called a major development for stormwater management practices in New Jersey, we're proposing 2 bioretention basins, which provide water quantity, water quality, and recharge control. Again, these are all state mandated. The state of New Jersey has a state stormwater rule that all municipalities are obligated to follow. In addition to the detention basins, we're obviously providing lighting now. Again, lighting that would bring the parking field to be lit in accordance with the ordinance requirements. And we're also providing landscaping. There will be numerous trees taken down on this site now to expand the parking lot. And to replace those trees, the landscape plan proposes 50 additional shade trees, shade and flowering trees, and over 250 various shrubs and bushes.
Could you repeat those numbers? I'm sorry.
Sure. We're proposing 50
50?
shade/flowering trees.
Okay.
So essentially, our tree list includes, the 50 trees are green spire lindens, red maples, and flowering dogwoods. Those are our tree category plantings. And then we have over 250 shrubs, boxwoods, azaleas, rhododendrons, hollies, and the like. And the shade trees, actually, you know what I'll do is I'll flip to the landscaping plan now, because it's essentially the same thing as the site plan, only we've brought in the lighting and the landscaping, since we're discussing landscaping. So we're basically hitting all 4 frontages of our site with landscaping. So on the Montrose Avenue frontage, Scotland Road frontage, as well as the Stewart Place and Vose Avenue, we've got the 3 trees that I mentioned scattered about the frontages. So we've got a number of green spire, dogwoods, and maples, basically to provide a streetscape. The majority of our shrubs, and again, most of these are evergreen, are immediately lining the downhill side of the parking lots. So each one of these parking lot bays where it faces adjacent or a residential zone or a neighbor's property, we've got evergreen boxwoods that are first line of defense that follow the entire length of the parking stalls between the headlight and the property line and the headlights. Behind those, we've bolstered those with other evergreens, azaleas, rhododendron, and American hollies, basically. So we've got a kind of a depth to some of the landscaping. We'll end up on this westerly side, we'll end up with a buffer that's between 35 and 40 feet. Along the northerly side of the Stewart Place parking lot area, where that parking lot is going to be, again, about 50 or 60 feet away from the property line, and it will, again, be planted with the plantings I had mentioned, the American hollies, azaleas, rhododendron, and the like. There is one feature that's being created. Actually, it was a nice feature that was added on subsequent to the plans that you received. The school has decided to add a green courtyard area in the cove that's formed by the wings of the building. Currently now, that's all impervious surface and a rather tight and awkward parking lot arrangement in there. That's been abandoned in favor of this big green planted area. It also, reconstructing this, provided a relatively good spot for our handicap parking stalls. One of the challenges with this site is the fact that it averages about a 5% slope in the existing lot. You have to flatten those out dramatically in order to get compliant handicap accessible parking. So that's been accomplished by about a foot or so of cut in this area where the courtyard is developed, so we can flatten, create a plateau so that handicapped patrons can park closest to the accessible route as possible. I developed this plan, so I could talk about this all night, and I don't want to bore you. Those are the overviews. I'll be happy to entertain any questions or clarifications that you may have, so I don't drone on.
I'll start. So your lighting proposal, just down here, are you going to be using what looks like the gas lamps?
Yes, that was something that was requested and corroborated by the zoning board. We've already been through one review with the zoning board, yes.
So those will be all the round circle dots there?
That's exactly correct, yes.
Plenty of lighting, okay. That was my one question.
There are a lot of very mature trees, so how many trees are coming down? I mean, that is part of the character of the neighborhood and the streetscape.
Understood. Technically, the tree is defined as anything over 4 inches, so I was obligated to account for all of those trees. There's over 80 trees, 4 inches diameter, that will be removed as part of this. And again, we're planting 50 because we're increasing impervious surface coverage, so we can't, it would be difficult to plant the entire 80 just shade trees because we would not have as much green area to plant as they currently do.
And I'm just curious, I think it's in South Orange, 14 inches and above the trees, you're required to sort of document the trees over a certain caliper, but is there a requirement for like a 1-to-1 ratio in planting, or that's not really a requirement? That's just what you guys are doing?
That was not part. We had to do an environmental impact statement, as a matter of fact, and that wasn't. They talked about steep slopes and flood areas, but there was no tree replacement requirement.
The trees that you're putting in, what size are those trees?
Those are, I think they're 2.5 to 3 inches caliper. These are minimum 2.5 caliper. That's a pretty typical commercial size tree. That's what's proposed.
So like the typical size you might see in a parking lot downtown, or?
Yeah, 2.5 caliper is roughly 12 feet tall. But that's right. Typical, I mean, that's what you typically see in a retail development is 2.5-inch caliper trees.
Access to the Graves Mansion. How, I'm looking here, are you changing any of the access points to the house, entries, anything like that, as far as stairs up leading to it? Are we moving anything, directions?
No, sir. At this point, there's an existing drive and a small parking area. This drive runs in front of the Graves house. We're basically taking that drive and placing some parking on either side of it, but we're not changing the grade in that area. So at this time, although the Graves building is not contemplated to be utilized, we've worked the parking and grading around this in such a fashion that there won't be any changes to the entrance contemplated at this time.
How about for ADA compliance? I can't remember if it has any elevators or any ramps now.
We did not, frankly, we didn't address ADA compliance for this particular building because we're not sure what's going to be done with it, if there's going to be elevators, so it's not something we really addressed. We were obligated to address it with this building because it's going to be occupied and utilized by students, but that's not something that's been really fully designed for this particular building.
Would the university have to do that just with any of their buildings?
I believe the requirement is to do that. If they ever create offices out of that, I think they're going to have to provide some sort of accessible access route and parking. I mean, currently these handicap parking stalls the number that are required are predicated on the entire lot, parking lot. So we currently show sufficient for this whole lot. Clearly, these would not be very well located if you were going to the Graves house. So there likely would be some of these converted to a handicap stall location, so it would be closer to the accessible route for that, but that's not really contemplated at this time.
Are there any plans for signage?
Good question. There is an existing sign for the school located at the corner of Montrose and Scotland. Seton Hall is planning to basically pull that sign out, replace it with a sign the exact same dimensions, only it'll have the Seton Hall logo. But it'll be, the frame is going to stay, there's ambient lighting from the bottom, that will stay. The only thing is going to be different is the logo on the sign. It's going to displace exactly what's there in terms of size.
And would that sign be similar to the signs that are currently for the campus, that kind of?
I think it'll have the pirate. Will the pirate be? Yes, the pirate. No pirate, no pirate, no pirate.
Okay. Well, the ones for the campus are very, they're very, they look very nice.
Yes, in that case, yes.
Understated.
Those are the signs.
Okay. Yeah, nice. Not the garish ones.
Any intention for banners on the street?
I'm sorry, say again?
Any intention for banners on the street?
On the light poles.
We haven't really discussed that, no.
During construction, because the way I see it, you're going to work on the primary school first, you're going to leave the Graves mansion untouched until you decide what you're going to do with it. During the construction, access to the house will be off limits. What are you doing to protect the house during construction?
It's locked up currently. I don't think there's any access. It's under lock and key. So,
Okay.
again, that's not something that I discussed with the university because the Graves house wasn't contemplated to be touched at this point. But I know it's cordoned off. I tried to get in there one time early in the project. You can't get into the house.
So you're not going to use it for storage or anything like that?
That's-
It's just
no.
going to be there until further plans come up for it?
That's my understanding, sir.
Well, I
yes.
assume the university would have to restore heat in order to maintain the building.
Yeah, even to store
Right.
things, yeah.
Because it was my understanding that all utilities were disconnected for the demolition, so I hope the university is aware of that.
Any other questions at this time for Mr. Quinn?
Have there been any other parking considerations or configurations and a consideration for less parking? It seems like, it's pretty much a big parking lot now, and a lot of parking right in front of the Graves Mansion itself, so that is going to look a little less residential. And I understand the use. I do think it's a great adaptive reuse of the building, so I'm happy about that. But I'm concerned about the whole parking lot.
We did go through a couple of different sketches for the parking lot. The university has decided they need for this facility, based on the initial population expected to come in, plus, I believe, some factor of growth that they're anticipating, they require 202 parking stalls to be on this site. So again, we look at a couple of configurations. There's really not much you can do with this site, considering that the building occupies this corner here. So we tried to expand the parking lot as much as we could, provide them the parking that they felt was going to be required for this, and maintain as much buffering, non-pervious surfaces adjacent to the existing property lines as we possibly could. At the end of the day, we may have done 2 or 3 sketches, but there was not a whole lot to be done, considering we're maintaining the Graves house and maintaining the existing school. And the lot is not, rectilinear or rectangular. It's kind of an odd jutting shape, which again, kind of dictated the design and gave us few options other than what you see before you.
How many spaces do you have, Mr. Quinn?
There are a total of 202 on the site.
So
Proposed.
you have what you need?
Yes, we have, actually, I think we have in excess of what we need, slightly in excess of what we need. The current projected, I think they're projecting the population here based on what they have now at the Yellow facility, their existing facility in Newark. I think that that number requires 180 stalls. They're looking to provide 20 additional stalls, again, for future growth. And I also think that they've had some experience. The university requirement for parking is 1 stall per every 4 faculty or students. I think they're always bumped up against that. So they're trying, so 180 stalls would be 1 per 4. We're proposing 20 more than that because I think that they feel that 4 is not quite enough. So I think they're hedging. So, nobody wants to have people milling about the residential street, so I think they're trying to make sure they have sufficient parking on the street so people aren't circulating the site, off the street, I should say, so they're not circulating around looking for stalls on the street.
What's your timeline for the project? Because when the school is not as much of the concern as getting to the Graves Mansion.
Right. I don't know that I would be the best to answer that. I mean, there's a lot that they have to do in order to acquire their approvals.
Of course.
The building's going to take quite a bit of renovation to bring it to the standards they need for their program. I would hesitate to venture a guess. If you would like, there's a couple of representatives from Seton Hall who might be better suited to answer that time frame than me. But I don't want to shoot from the hip because I usually regret when I do.
Let's finish with him first.
Okay.
You can call him back.
Please.
Another question, a follow-up to Chairman Hill's question about the Graves Mansion during construction on the school. Is it standard practice to put up some kind of fencing or concrete barrier or something around the house so that it's protected from large machinery or?
Well, in this case, there's not going to be, normally you would do something like that if there was a population milling about the property. If they had operations going on in a portion of the campus. But since there's really not going to be anybody on the campus other than workmen, I don't know that there's a plan to really cordon off the building. It's already locked down. They're not going to be utilizing, construction equipment is not going to be utilizing this driveway in front of the Grace house because it's narrow and it's not going to be well suited for construction access. So I think the plan is just to keep it locked up.
Is the hedge that's currently there coming down?
Yes. A lot of that hedge is coming down because the county requires it for sight distance. Currently, sight distance is horrible there now. If you're coming out of that Scotland Road driveway, you're gunning it. You're holding your breath and you're gunning it. So in order to appease the county and to make sure we complied with their sight distance requirements, we are going to be taking down a fair amount of that on either side of the Scotland driveway. And again, those will be, the intent is to then plant further back in front of the parking stalls to replace, because that, I think it's seasonal, but it is pretty thick. That hedge is fairly thick, even though it loses its leaves, and loses its greenery in the winter.
So the original project description said to add 135 parking spaces, so I guess I misunderstood that. So does that mean you're adding on to current spaces that were already there?
It's about 50 now.
So there were 50 there.
Yeah,
And right, the old plan had about 180, 182 with banked parking. The university decided, and the zoning officer, actually the zoning board's engineer suggested if you want to plan on that banked parking, you don't want to come back to the board, fully engineer it and design the basin that goes with that.
So explain to the board what banked parking means.
Banked means that you have approval for it, but you don't construct it until such time as you actually need it, sometime in the future.
So in other words, what you're proposing here is what you will have. You're not proposing to add additional parking at any point.
That's correct.
Can you tell us a little more about the retention basins, what they're going to look like, what the walls around them will look like?
Sure.
I guess what concerns me is that lower retention basin. It looked like to me when I looked at the previous plans that it might be about 19 feet tall from Vos Avenue visually. So could you talk
Sure.
about that?
Sure. We've actually redesigned this basin to lower it. The reason why we've chosen above-grade basins and not below-grade detention system, in a lot of urban areas you get underground detention systems. Those are not only very expensive to construct, but they don't do a good job of water quality. They require mechanical water quality units that have to be maintained. Oftentimes they're forgot about. So what I typically design, if I can, and in this case we did, are bioretention basins. Bioretention basins are planted media that provide water quality. Basically, they collect the first roughly foot of runoff the first flush of runoff from the pavement areas. They percolate, the runoff then percolates through the soil. There's under drains in the basin that take the percolated runoff through the outlet control structure, and then the outlet control structure directs the runoff down. One goes down Stewart Place to the storm sewer system there, and the other one discharges into the storm sewer system in Vose Avenue. In terms of the height of the basins, the only one that has a wall is the one adjacent to Vose Avenue, because there's quite a bit of a slope that runs down the north half of this property. This basin is only about 3 feet deep in terms of the water it's going to hold. The retaining wall on the back side of it will be about 5 feet deep because of the grade. So it's, I can't speak for how tall it's going to look, but it's not going to look like a 19-foot wall, that I can assure you.
So this is smaller than what was originally in the other plan?
That's correct. I think we had a wall here that was about 6.5 feet tall.
Right.
And the wall was a little high, close to the driveway, because we ended up realigning this driveway to improve its alignment. So subsequent to the first plan you got, we've slid the basin over, and we've actually made an underground component of it so that we could reduce the height of the basin and the height of the retaining wall. This basin here has no retaining wall. It's a very shallow basin, again, 2.5 to 3 feet maximum depth. One you won't even see unless you're standing right on the berm.
How long do these types of retention basins hold the water? Because I know in the summer, people worry about West Nile virus and things like that.
They're designed to drain, per state standards, anytime you accumulate water in a bioretention basin or a dry well or any infiltration device for that matter, it's required to empty in 72 hours. This will empty long before that. Actually, when it's first constructed, it'll drain probably within 12 hours. And then over time, as sediments are accumulated in the basin, that percolation will slow down. But at all times, it's designed to drain within 72 hours because that's the state standard.
At this time, are there any more questions regarding the mansion itself?
Yeah, I have a question. As we look at this sort of, for me, in the context of us about to figure out what to do with the old stone house, this, structure that was there that we protected and don't do anything, just keep it protected but board it up. And I'm kind of surprised that we're at this stage and there's not a plan for this building, because this particular building is the reason that we're all here pretty much. And I know that a lot of work has been done, and I'm delighted that there's a plan for this. It's just that there's not really a plan for the elephant in the room, which is this building. Is there a time frame for having a plan for the building?
Exactly, time frame.
Again, any time frames I would be best to leave Seton Hall.
All right, before we do that.
I think what you heard a little bit, though, was that the school, this is the focus of their program.
Right.
They'd like to do something with this. I think it was a question of the more you look, the more you find. And I think that they have no way of scoping what it's going to take to bring this building, so they've kind of deferred it because they need to focus their energy and resources on this building. This is a black hole right now, I think, to them in some regards.
I mean, I know that parking is correlated to use, so I'm assuming the use of the larger building has been determined. You know the number of rooms, you know the number of classrooms, the number of assembly spaces. Right. So this parking lot is basically based on pretty much dicing up this existing structure and determining what you're going to do with it. So the parking for this Graves Mansion is correlated to the use. So it's correlated to, are these classrooms, or this is assembly space? So the parking, and I'm guessing you want to do your parking once, not now, and then come back after you figure out what the use is.
The parking for the site was calibrated in part by assuming the Graves house would be used as an office use.
Thank you.
Going forward.
Right. They did calculate a square
It was
footage.
calculated based on the square footage of the building, that there might be 19 office employees there, or that they would need 19 parking spaces for those employees, so on a one-to-one basis. So that's part of the parking calibration. The rest of the parking calibration is based on the number of employees and students and that sort of thing on the 1-to-4 ratio. with a little bit excess left over.
Okay.
I have,
And yeah, just to answer your question, I mean, the university is a contract purchaser and can't go pulling that house aside and apart until it owns the house, until it owns the property.
Fair, okay, we understand that. So, but the intention is to keep the building. That's the bottom line.
Intention is definitely to keep the Graves house.
Actually, I would hope the intention is to use the building.
Right.
We've kept the stone house for how many years now?
Right.
You
And
know,
it's fallen apart, right.
so.
I would hope that it would be nice if there was, we had the confidence that the building is going to be protected during, you've got parking spaces indicated pretty much flush up against this building, which is, though it doesn't look so right now, it is an historic building. Would it be difficult to add some sort of protection around the house while that construction is going?
I'm sorry, may I add some?
I mean, just in terms of fencing or barriers or something that's going to keep a backhoe from making a mistake and knocking the wrong thing down, or just to protect what is historic, what is our main concern on that property?
I'm sure there'd be no objection to that. I just don't think it's something that they envision would happen. But I'm sure there's no objection to that at all.
Yeah, I think it's important with the parking that's indicated so close to the house.
Okay.
Well, one of the things I'd like to mention regarding the parking, and being that South Orange is a smart transit-related town, I mean, your proximity to Mountain Station, again, this isn't related necessarily to the plan, but I would hope that we would really encourage folks to take the train as opposed to, individually driving cars, just because it should be an extremely convenient and preferred way to travel.
It's also on a bus route.
Sorry?
The 92 goes right past that, too. The bus
Yeah,
stops right in front
exactly.
of the
That's
building.
right. So that would be encouraged.
I mean, all the numbers escape me, but in general, the parking is calibrated in a way that assumes that there are a number of students who will come over on the Seton Hall shuttle. There were students who will come by train and by bus, and so they're not intending to park all the students on the site.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm surprised the number's as low as it is, 25%. That's. We had a problem in Tuxedo Park several months ago about a lot of student parking there. I don't know how that was resolved. It was in the local press a lot, but I'm assuming that whatever lessons you guys learned with Tuxedo Park, you're will leverage with Montrose.
Okay, are there any more questions from, I was just saying, are there any more questions for Mr. Quinn at this moment, before we, or you're here to address the parking?
Our parking garage will be open by August.
Right, I don't know if everybody is aware that there's an expansion to the
Yep.
Seton Hall parking garage, yeah.
And the time frame?
Yeah, as long as you're here, let's address the time frame.
Well, keep in mind that, as Mr. Coakley has indicated, it's a contingent contract. And while it may seem as if we have plans for that are progressing rapidly, there is a long road to hoe in terms of getting this contract across the finish line. And that has to do with the clear title. I don't know, I'm sure you are all aware of that. So, our concern, and I know you're concerned about the condition of the building and how the building is maintained from the exterior. Our concern and that of the sisters is what's happening on the interior of the building. Over the course of a year with no heat, moisture. I think they've put some dehumidifiers into that. They've run some power over there to run dehumidifiers. There's, as time goes on, well, let's put this, time is no friend of us maintaining that house. So, from the inside. So, but again, that's really, the next rodeo is the title.
You could see our concerns because we have the old stone house, which is basically falling apart, and we understand time for, that's why we're just, once you acquire, let's say you acquire, we're just hoping that there be some emphasis put into restoring it sooner than later. Because as you said, time is an enemy
I
here.
assure you that the moment that we acquire it, that we will make sure that there's permanent power in there to run the sub pumps, the humidifiers, try and get some heat in there. And unlike the stone house, which I think the residents there are raccoons.
Pretty much, yeah. Possums.
It used to be, I don't think.
We have observed that that's beginning to happen here. So the sisters are taking some action to try and stop that as well, to keep a repeat of that.
Okay. Are there any other questions for any of our two witnesses? At this time,
I just had
One
one
more?
other.
Go right
In
ahead.
regard, again, to the parking, at the High Holy Days, a lot of times, the temple would have a deal with Mary Lawn, and they would use their parking on those days when there was such a high capacity of people. And I'm just wondering if the university might consider that kind of relationship and reciprocation with the temple, and consider perhaps using some of their parking. Just, I don't know how it would work, but I guess it's just concerning me how much parking there is on the site, especially directly in front of the house itself.
Well, I think that would be wonderful, and I'm sure the university. we would be certainly interested in pursuing that with them. We haven't had that conversation yet. I am aware. I've heard about that, but there's been no conversation about it.
Okay, well, thank you.
But absolutely.
all right, one last time here. Anyone else? Any other questions? We're good? Any questions? No. Thank you two gentlemen for all your time and your testimony. Yep.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, this is the first time, of course, that we're going through this process. You know that what Section 6 is very open-ended in terms of what kinds of comments or recommendations you can make. In this particular case, we have specific questions from the chairman of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and that I will just remind you of. He asked, do we wish to comment on the historic significance of the structure or property involved in the application and the effect, if any, of the application on that significance? If so, what are your comments or suggestions? Please set forth the historical basis for your comments or suggestions with citations where applicable. What I would suggest is that there have been a number of comments made by commissioners about suggestions about changes to the plan or ways to protect the structure or concerns about timetable, and those are the kinds of things that conceivably could go into a letter that we would prepare to the board for their consideration. This is non-binding, but it's for their consideration. And the other, I think, question is, based upon what you're about to tell me, I will then put that into a letter. And the way that the ordinance is crafted, a representative of the commission is supposed to come to the board hearing and offer those comments. We think we had a discussion of the last meeting about trying to make sure that that representative kind of sticks to the script and doesn't offer other extemporaneous comments. However, that works out, it works out. But one thought that I had was, if we could be clear enough tonight about what it is that you want to recommend, then I could draft it, the representative could go to the board, and we would not have to take the additional step of having to come back next month and having read what I wrote, then having approved it, and essentially delaying the process by another month. However, if you think that you need to look at it before it goes to the board, we can do that, but if we can make this as clear and succinct as possible, maybe we don't need to, and I'll leave that up to you to decide.
All right, at this time, I'll open up to comments from the other commissioners and to help make us decisions here. Any want to open up here? Anyone
Well,
wants to-
we've said a bunch of things. Should we summarize what our main concerns are, maybe?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think one, use and timeliness of something happening to the Graves Mansion other than boarding it up and waiting. I'm sure that can be put in a better way.
I had written down
Just to
something
clarify, I
like
think it's
prompt.
not boarded up right now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
It's not boarded up, so.
Oh, okay, well, I mean,
And I don't think it should be.
I had written down something like, upon taking title, prompt decision with regard to the use of the building and implementation, something like that.
Can I don't know that we need to put this in there, but if there is any significant change to the exterior, that the applicant should understand that they would need to come back to us for approval on that?
I think that kind of goes without saying, but we could put in the letter that obviously anything that they do that then would trigger new review by this commission, they would have to come back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want it to seem like we're giving a blanket approval. If we approve it.
Well, it's conceivable that anything that they may come back with a plan for the Graves House, for example, I don't know, if they want to make it accessible and they want to put in a ramp or a tower, they might have to go back to the planning board anyway.
Yes.
So it all depends on what they're going to do.
So protection of the house during construction.
I have protection of the house during construction.
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I just know what construction sites can be like, and if it's clearly marked off or clearly protected in some way, then we don't have I wouldn't worry so much about a tractor backing into it or something like that.
So you mean some kind of temporary fencing?
Yeah,
That's
like orange fencing or concrete, those movable barriers, they move in and out, or something that will keep it separate from the part that's being torn up.
Timeline of some sort as far as once title, we mentioned that. What else? Anything else? Parking?
Just the consideration of maintaining as many of the large trees that are there, if there's any way to look at the plan and see if there's any way to maintain more trees than what are being taken down, because the difference between 80 and 50 trees is quite a few, and they're much smaller. I mean, obviously, that's a 2.5-inch, 3-inch caliber tree is a good size, but it's far different from what was there.
In terms of the parking issue, of course, it's important to keep in mind that we're not the planning board, we're not the zoning board. So I think, but I think a lot of the comments tonight, in my view anyway, were consistent with making sure that the project doesn't affect the historic character of the area and the view shed from the neighboring property. So I think the questions were appropriate as far as I'm concerned. What you might want to consider, if you want to, is a recommendation as to maybe having less parking spaces in front of the Graves. I don't know. That's where the Commissioner Don's going, I know. So I don't know.
Definitely how I feel.
I mean, my only thought about that is at one point, this will need handicap parking.
Right.
And you can't get it from the back because the steep's it's too much of a grade, so you're going to have to park in front.
Right.
It's nice that it's one directional. It's not two-way, so that it limits the size of the lane. I find that to be a very sort of sympathetic parking solution,
I
honestly.
agree with you, Commissioner Barnett, but if you look at the school, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 handicapped in front of the school, so the amount of parking in front of the house is far more than
Right,
that.
that's true.
And so you could probably have as few as 6 handicap or accessible spots just in front of the house.
I think what's hard to do here is to channel your comments as to matters that really are within your jurisdiction and not comments that go to the prerogatives of the zoning board. Certainly parking is one of the main issues with respect to any change of use or adaptive reuse such as this.
Well, I would suggest that ordinarily I would agree with you, but I think where the commission is going, and I don't think that they're totally wrong about this, is that the view shed of the historic property is a part of the consideration. And if now is no parking between the street and the house, and now there's going to be, I think that that's something that's worthy of their commenting on. Subject to the planning board, obviously this is non-binding advice, so the board can decide however it feels is appropriate in terms of the number of parking spaces.
Might I suggest possibly in that particular area not using a macadam? If you use something that's more stonish, I don't know, that doesn't look like a parking lot so much. There's a lot of places where you have parking that is not, it looks more like a walkway or something.
I think the engineer, if he was up here, would tell you that these parking spaces have to be designed a certain way and have to be,
Okay.
I don't know that you could do that.
I forgot the numbers. I think it was, we had one space for every 4 inhabitant, whatever, plus 20? Was there a number? So I'm just counting, maybe we, axe the 20 and, those would be right there. But
Well, we don't have to be specific about
Right.
it, but I think I would suggest the recommendation would be for the planning board to seriously consider reducing the number of spaces directly in front of Gray's building.
Okay.
That's all.
I think that's good.
And I guess my other thought is any creative solution to utilizing other parking options on campus or having a relationship with the temple. That's all.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll look at this.
I'd like to
The only thing
applaud the
yeah.
university for the adaptive reuse and also for their interest in salvaging materials that were previously in the Graves Mansion. I think that is really admirable. And I think that this use could fit nicely in the neighborhood.
I think that's a good idea. We should put in that you appreciate the fact that there is an adaptive reuse and the saving of the fixtures.
Absolutely.
yeah, it's interesting. This is, one of 2 cases tonight when 2 residences now going forward will never be single-family resident, or will not be single-family residences. And I think this is one. I mean, I think there was a time where this mansion, you could say, well, somebody might, buy this as a mansion, but I think, this is the point where it's now, it's sort of crossed the line in terms of being not a single-family residence anymore.
Except for raccoons.
Except for,
Except for raccoons.
Adaptive reuse is a good thing.
I have nothing else more to add. Anyone else? Commissioner? Trustee Stone, anything to add? Commissioner Barnett, you're good?
Good.
All right, so at this time, council, would you write up the letter?
I will prepare a letter, and I think that that's straightforward enough. I hope the commission agrees it's straightforward enough that I could draft that, and it could then go to the board without further review by the commission.
I agree.
Are you all right with that?
Everyone okay with
Okay.
that?
Do we need a motion for that?
Right.
You need a motion?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that council draft a letter to Zoning Board of Adjustment with our recommendations for this application.
Second?
I see.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No nays. There you go.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time. Over here. Wow.
Quicker than I thought.
Okay. Moving on. All right. Next on our agenda for tonight, pending matters, approval of revised 2014 meeting dates and locations. It's brought to my attention, the one that was handed us, the meeting schedule that was emailed to us had a wrong date. It has been corrected on the one handed out tonight. Regards to Tuesday, July 16th. On the one that was emailed to us, it was originally noted as the 22nd. So please disregard that and take a look here that now it goes back to being, is that Tuesdays there?
Third Tuesday.
The third Tuesdays of every month. So that just
With the
keeps in
exception
line,
With the exception of October.
thank you, with the exception of October being a Thursday, but it goes back to Tuesdays. So if everyone's had a chance to do this, look at the dates. We need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve. The date is
I second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, schedule of annual meetings adopted. Boom. All right, moving forward. Discussion. Next on the list, commissioner vacancies. Trustee Schnall, have an update for us today.
Well, so we do, but actually our Secretary, Kathy Cameron, will help us, because one of the things that we realized, and is worthy of conversation, and we may have to do this in executive session, but I just want to make the commissioners aware, so we did interview a number of folks and some qualified folks, and I think we feel prepared to present to you new commissioners, both an alternate and a regular. However, in looking at this, it appeared that the classifications between Class A and Class B may need further review. So for instance, Commissioner Barnett, as an architect, would likely fall into the Class A. And I think when we looked at some of the others, I'm not sure how it got where it was initially, but I think we need to do a quick review with your assistance and make sure so we know where the openings are, how to fill them, and then we can make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees for the new commissioners, which would then get voted in by yourselves at our next meeting, which would be in May. But I guess the point I want to bring is that we would, with your acceptance, we should take a look at those classifications A, B, and C.
Okay, and that would be in executive session.
Kathy, we would do that in executive session?
Yes.
And would we want to take that on tonight or for the next meeting?
The commission can decide if they want to conduct an executive session at the end of the May meeting, so that both meetings are done on the same night. So an adjournment to the public portion of the May meeting would then lead into a closed executive session without re-adjournment into the public.
On the basis that we're discussing personnel? Is that
Correct.
Right. Class
I'm guessing that
designation and vacancies.
if we don't do it tonight, it delays getting them in another month.
It would have to be May, is what Kathy
Right,
is
because
saying.
we have to notice it.
We have to notice
Right.
executive session.
Okay.
Right, and I think there's also some dynamics on this board, some potential changes as well that we would need to discuss and incorporate as well.
Okay. All right, so we'll put that on the agenda for an executive session for the May meeting, and we'll notice the public for that.
And with your acceptance, what I can do, just so as we did interview a few people, and with your agreement, I would reach out to them to let them know, not that we haven't forgotten them, that actually we're keenly still interested. It's just there were some dynamics, some changes, and that we asked them to just be patient with us. And in fact, we could consider inviting them. I guess we have to think about that. We could always invite them to the May meeting. They could sit out here, but that way they can have a transition. One of the things that's a challenge for new commissioners and boards is when they come on, they immediately just hit a chair. I like the idea of a transition of actually asking newer members to sit in the audience to sort of see how it is, and then they could jump in.
So we can invite them to the next month's meeting. We adjourn to executive session. We talk about the changes here, and then we give you our recommendations. You'd present it to the trustees. They'd say, yes, vote them in, and then they would come to the June meeting.
I think that would be
That's the timeline.
I think
I assume that everybody you're inviting would be people that are not competing against each other. They're filling slots.
correct. That would be the intention.
We don't want to have any wrestling matches in the audience.
Okay.
That's how we decide. It's physical.
I'm sorry, I missed. What's the purpose of the May meeting with respect to the new commissioners?
I'm sorry, which? So.
Why do we have to wait till
Designation.
June for them to start?
Designation of commissioners. There may be people that are in a class that maybe should be in a different class.
Of existing
So-
commissioners? We had that discussion, didn't we? We had that discussion maybe last session,
Right.
last month.
Right.
but I don't think we've resolved it. So I mentioned
Oh,
that,
okay.
I did mention that at our last meeting, that we should be considering that. There's also some existing commissioners that may be making some changes.
Okay.
So we need to
Okay.
incorporate that, so we know exactly where our openings are, so we can
Got
make the
it.
new
Sorry.
positions.
Okay, so my recommendation, if anyone would be to go through the timeline that I just told. So we'll have executive session, we'll invite them, we'll approve the changes at executive session.
Right, but they would not be at executive.
No, they won't be. We'll invite them to the regular portion of the meeting.
At what point do we know who the proposed candidates are?
I wouldn't announce that publicly because actually the Board of Trustees does need to approve that.
Okay.
But I can tell you offline, actually, who we're considering.
Okay, great.
Okay, so any other comments or questions about that? Trustee Schnall, if you would invite them, and we'll go through the timeline I just proposed.
Will do.
Thank you very much. Okay. Class designation, we just talked about changes. We'll do those, we'll talk about those at the executive session next month. Addendum for non-binding advice. Question number 14, notice to property owners, maintain or
I did
omit.
have a question about that, because I noticed the comment from the attorney from Seton Hall. Is that why you're bringing that up?
Yes. Neither of the applicants tonight noticed, because after a discussion with the chairman and myself, we agreed that they didn't have to provide a notice. It's not required by the ordinance for a non-binding advice.
Okay.
But we were, we couldn't poll the whole board or have a meeting about it at that point, but we did want to discuss it tonight to make sure everyone is comfortable with that, or if not, to make a different decision going forward. The addendum that we hand out to folks that we have approved requires them to notice property owners with 200 feet and in agencies for non-binding advice. The ordinance doesn't call for that. The ordinance calls for notice for certificates of appropriateness, but not for non-binding advice. And it seemed to us at the time that it was an additional burden that wasn't necessary, given that we're not voting yes or no, we're giving advice to the board.
I would agree with that, especially since they've already been noticed by, through the zoning application.
Right, or a
And they would know,
not
or,
building, but
zoning or
something.
planning, but they would know that it was referred to the Historic Preservation Commission.
I mean, I think one of the things that we're going to see
Or
as we
should
go
know.
along here, as we hear these applications, as Commissioner Don pointed out before, is that there are very different ranges, as you saw tonight, very different ranges of scopes of projects that are going to come to you for this non-binding advice. And maybe we'll have to figure out somewhere along the way what the threshold is for things like notice and additional time. Somebody like the first applicant you had tonight, they just want to get on the agenda on May 8th. And if you had required them to notice, that's another $400 or $500 in expense for notice. They may not have been able to notice in time, so then they would have missed the May meeting to go to the June Planning Board meeting. And you got to decide whether you want to impose that kind of burden on a relatively small application. On the other hand, a big scope project, maybe you do. But I think one of the things we kept in mind, I think, Mr. Chairman, was that because the public was aware of the application, because it's before the board, if they, and they would, if they were at the meeting, they would have been aware that it was referred to us, then maybe a public notice isn't necessary.
That was my thought last meeting when we were talking to council here.
Well, I think that more than anything, it's not in the ordinance. I don't
It's
know
not
that
in
we
the
can
ordinance.
require it.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I have mixed feelings about it, and maybe at some point we need to address whether it's in the ordinance, because I think there could be times when people would not have known. And for example, we had the one application that was a subdivision, and it had not gone in front of a board, and neighbors did not know that it was coming to us.
That's true, because it came to us before it went to the board.
Yeah.
That's true.
So I think it is a concern. At minimum, I would like to see the two historical society, the South Orange Historical Society and Montrose Park notified of any hearing coming to us, because they are the two historic organizations who would be the key, major key stakeholders. I could see,
Well, let me ask a question, as to not put a burden on the applicant, could we require our secretary to notify the historical societies of any application that's pending?
Or you could require them to notify the two
could-
historical
Oh,
societies.
it's
Have them
not-
send
yeah.
a certified mail to the, we could put that on the
So
agenda.
I was just going to say, question 14 is notice of the historic societies and list the two. Maybe that's it, for
Right.
non-binding advice.
at minimum, I mean, the subdivision is a lot of different organizations.
Well, subdivision, they had to notice
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
needed a certificate of appropriateness, so they
Right.
had to do the notice.
And how about for a use variance? Does that require notice?
Oh, sure. For both of the applications that you've seen tonight, they had to notify everybody within 200 feet of the application before the board.
And that's for the board meeting, not necessarily for this
Not for
meeting?
us.
Okay, all right.
And maybe we can think of some, intelligent way of a threshold, whether it's,
It'd be nice to make sure that that cases did have notice, if not through us, at least through another body, like
Well,
the zoning.
when they filed their application, like the zoning board of adjustment application, it listed the people that they noticed.
If it's a zoning,
Well, I think for
I
most
mean,
of
I guess my concern would be, say there's a major change to a facade. We would require notice, though, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so never mind. It's just for stuff that we would have non-binding advice, whether or not we would notice.
right.
Okay, I would say no.
So would you be comfortable with a change to number 14 on the addendum, that instead of saying include proof of notification of hearing to property owners within 200 feet and agencies on attached list, we would change it to include proof of notification of hearing to,
agencies on attached list.
to South Orange
South Orange
Historical
Historical and
Society.
Preservation
Yeah.
Society and the Montrose
Montrose
Park
Society.
Historic District Association.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do think that we also need to be more, little more, take a closer look at the calendar, because today was a holiday, and, many of us do attend Seder's. I don't on the second night, but I think we probably should have been a little more aware of that, so.
I agree. I absolutely
I
agree. I
agree,
was
too.
kind of surprised.
Yeah,
I was like, wait a minute.
I don't know, but all of us, some of us, we just didn't look at our calendars
Right.
closely enough, so we really need to be aware of that.
I think so. I agree.
Just so for note of this conversation, would we, at a previous meeting, say, hey, we're going to postpone our regularly scheduled meeting? How would that work? I mean, if it came on a holiday
How
like
does
this.
the
I would
planning
have-
board and the zoning board do their meetings with respect to holidays?
I don't know about planning and zoning, but this was the first time it was brought to my attention for this particular holiday.
Right.
Right.
I usually work with the municipal holiday schedule, so since this is not, I didn't, plus combined with SOPAC's
Yes,
availability.
it's crazy.
Yeah, no,
It's
So,
that's
but
definitely.
moving forward.
I know, we're like on holidays. It's tax day, it's St. Pat,
That's right. We're here for St. Patrick's Day.
That's true.
It's my nephew's birthday. Well,
Right. Well.
All right,
yeah,
well,
We approved this calendar, but, we'll try to go through it with it.
Yeah, if anybody noticed that any of these are on
Yeah.
holidays.
No
yes.
Halloween, no
I'll know
Thanksgiving.
to work
No,
with
Yom
Passover,
Kippur.
Yeah.
and the whole thing, I
Yeah.
think.
Rosh
Because
Hashanah.
not just our commission, but also residents who would want to be here.
Right.
and
Sure.
we
No,
are
understood.
limiting
No,
their
that's fair
ability to
enough.
be here, so.
No, it makes sense. No, I agree with you. So regarding the question of number 14, is that a suitable answer, changing it to please notify the two, do we need a motion on that?
Yes.
I guess we do, don't we? That we're going to change the addendum to read, I'll open it up here.
Give me that again.
Hang on, I want to open it up, so include proof of notification of hearing to property, no, not property owners, but we would say to historic,
To Montrose Park.
Montrose
To the
Park.
local historic
Organization,
organizations,
the local-
Montrose Park Historic District Association and the South Orange Historical and Preservation Society.
Thank you, Commissioner Don, appreciate that. So I need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we amend item number 14, is it, on the
Yes.
addendum, to indicate that we notify local historic organizations, including the South Orange Historical and Preservation Society and the Montrose Park Historic District Association.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Mr. Burnett, you good for that?
He's still writing.
Yes, okay.
It's
Motion
they're
approved.
long names.
Motion approved. All right, so we'll be changing that, item number 14, to that. All right. Presentation, Village Master Plan, Historic Preservation Plan Elements. All have in front of you the hard work that Commissioner Don and Co-Vice Chair Barnett has put together here.
Yay.
And Commissioner Mon.
Ms. Mon, Commissioner Mon as
Actually,
well.
done most of the
So,
putting it together, so.
I don't know if anyone's had a chance to really look at it over here in the short time we've had
I
it. but-
have.
I was saying in the short time we've had it. But
I
we
did,
can
I
review
took it.
this, and there's been a lot of hours and work put into this. So tonight, I'm going to let, I know you,
I don't have anything really prepared other than to say, and there's so few of us who actually, most of us were on the subcommittee anyway, but this was basically, this is the component that will go into the master plan. This is the historic plan element. And Amy, you can probably say this better than I can, but in terms of just putting it together, we looked a lot at several other jurisdictions, particularly Maplewood, and we liked many things about their historic plan element. We thought it was well organized, it was concise, it was yet exhaustive. And so we have really taken a lot of data, information from work that has been done by a lot of people in South Orange over the past 15, 20 years, and even going further back. So, you know, I think this element, this historic plan element, I think pays homage to all that work that was done before by really trying to bring it together and making it, as part of the master plan. But our goal was to present it to the commission tonight. So here it is, and we can get it online as well.
I think it's awesome. I think the
Thank
work
you.
that has been done is just incredible.
Thank you.
Yes.
no,
Yes, thank you.
I think the historic timeline portion.
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Came out very well.
That was Carolyn's brainstorm.
No, that
All of
was
those dates have been
very good.
double-checked against the
I do have a few corrections. And
Yeah.
Oh,
Is this the draft for public comment? Is it, where are we with this?
Right now, we wanted to distribute it to everyone here, briefly talk about it, let everyone soak this in, and we'll bring this up again at the next meeting
Okay.
for comments. We'll let the public.
Can I submit my comments to Commissioner Mohn? That will be no problem, right? There's just a couple it's nothing that really changes what it
Well, I
means.
mean,
but there's just-
please open it up for more than typing, because, this is.
Oh, I will, if
Yeah,
you
so-
don't mind, I will.
Yeah,
Because there are
absolutely.
some
Yeah.
things that are a little wordy. But let me, the one thing I was mentioned before the meeting that always makes me laugh is, on page 3, it says, William Redmond builds the home that is now used as the Orange Lawn and Tennis Club. It's the Orange Lawn Tennis Club because they played lawn tennis there. It's not lawn and tennis. It's lawn tennis. Everybody always says Orange Lawn Tennis Club, but it's really Orange Lawn Tennis Club.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I caught that in the timeline
Oh, okay,
itself.
yeah.
Like,
Orange Lawn Tennis, yeah.
Yeah, there's still going to be, there are also very conflicting dates on when the Springs was built, when it opened, and when it burned down.
Yeah.
I've seen lots of.
And I do believe that the Midtown Direct was a little later, was either 97 or 98, because I bought my house in 96, and that was prior to Midtown Direct opening, which is why I got it, for the price I got it.
Well, and this is one of the reasons we're handing it out tonight, is to get just this kind of
Yeah,
feedback.
that's just, those are just a few of,
Yeah.
the comments. but-
Because this has all been picked up nearly directly from the village website, and what else
A lot of
did I-
different resources.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, I
Other
understand, yeah.
printed sources,
yeah.
so.
And I'm guessing the sort of the goal of this is that, we present it to the Board of Trustees and they adopt it.
I
So
think it
we're
goes to
gonna-
the planning
that's
board.
planning.
actually.
Planning board, yes, this is a planning board, it is an element for the planning board.
To the Planning and Zoning
And they
Committee.
can change it if they want, from what I
Right, so
understand.
we're looking for a champion within the executive committee, and so we're going
Yeah,
to
but
turn
this-
to you
this
there.
is-
Are we going to post it on our, we have to have a public process here.
Right.
Okay? So
So
are you,
have-
I don't know, we don't have any good answers to this, but are you going to post it on a website, or then have a hearing here on it, and then we will adopt it and recommend its adoption, at which point it goes to planning board?
Right.
It goes to the Planning and Zoning Committee, which makes a recommendation to the Board of Trustees.
Okay.
Okay, so,
So the question we had is that, of course, this is a working document still. There are edits, the reference section still needs to have a few more references added to it. We have some date corrections, et cetera. One of the appendices is not included yet, those sorts of things. And then there's also discussion about local landmarks and whether some, additional properties in Montrose Park should be also local landmarks. So there's a lot to be discussed still. So what is the best way to go about that? And at what
I would
point-
suggest that you not put something on the website and solicit comment on it until it's a document that you're ready to take comment
Right.
on.
Okay.
Okay,
That's
great.
what I
So
would-
then, can we keep discussing it at meetings, open meetings, revising, and then going back and forth on that until we're ready to do that? Is that how it works?
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Okay.
Okay,
so at this stage, we're here for us, this committee, to review this, to discuss at the next meeting for revising it and toning it up.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think about how, because I'm guessing the next meeting, it's going to be a big part of the agenda. But I'm just trying to think how to keep the meeting time as productive as possible,
I don't see any reason why people can't give you comments individually.
Yeah,
We
that's,
don't have to
I
sit
will
here and
send,
go
I will
line by
send my
line.
edits.
Is
because-
anyone a master at at Microsoft Word? Oh, Amy.
Yes.
Okay, so we just need version control
Oh,
and
absolutely,
comment and
yeah.
all that kind of stuff, because
You
I'm not.
you know how to do that, don't you?
Track
Okay,
changes.
Yeah,
Track changes.
right.
Amy and I kind of did this to Amy Saved the Day. It's actually in WordPad. not
It's
in Word.
really
No,
not
it's
hard.
Word,
yeah.
it's Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, just use, there's a track change under the review. In most
Yeah.
versions of Word, there's a tab that says Review, and then if you pull down, there's a Track Changes option. And first of all, that should be set on the main document, and then when it's distributed, it actually annotates your name based on what you...
The difficulty is this was sent around as a PDF.
Yeah, I sent it as a PDF because,
I can make comments on it. I
The
have a
text
full
w-
version of Adobe, but
you can still make notes on PDFs without a full version of Adobe. But I think the issue was this will, because it's in a table, it's going to move around a lot. So it's fine by me if you want to send your comments on some, and we'll save those, but I think adding them onto one document is going to be the best way to preserve the document itself.
I'd like to propose something, and this is putting a lot of pressure potentially on you, Amy, but is there any way you could sort of draft how to edit this document and send it to us?
a
Or if
PDF?
anybody is skilled at that.
A PDF, you'd really just have to put notes. You
PDF
really are not going to be able to edit it
Right, so
unless
you
you
have to be able to
cut
save
and
them
copy
and
it into
You can also-
into Word.
Access.
You could also
But-
scan your edits, too, if you needed to, right here and then scan.
Handwrite your edits and scan them.
That's
But who
true.
picks them up? I mean, I guess, who's the
scrivener?
who's the treasurer of the edits?
Well, I think because I got it all into this document, I'm going to be the person at this
Okay.
point doing that, because I know how it's sticking together. Right?
Okay.
Let me put it this way, I'm giving my edits to Amy.
Oh, okay. Amy, I'll get
Okay.
you my edits.
Okay, good.
I'll get you my edits.
If she
Good with
doesn't
that.
mind.
Okay.
All right. So just to review here, we've got this, take a look at it. We're going to send revisions to Commissioner Dawn. And then we'll bring this up as a topic to go over those revisions on the May 20th. And then at that time, if we will say the document's good or not, we can post it for open review on, this would be, if we came to those agreements for the June 17th meeting. So hear public comment on it. And then once we hear public comment on it,
Then we present it to the zoning and planning
board,
Committee.
whichever their meeting would be sometime in June or
Planning and zoning.
probably their July meeting.
Or September.
It's the third Wednesday of the month, so depending on
Yeah, so it would be their July meeting, and they'd review it, and then
Make a
they probably
recommendation.
sometime in August, if they decided that it was worthy to the planning board.
The Board of
Board of
Trustees.
Board of Trustees, thank you. So, and that would be August, and then they'd put it up for review.
Thanksgiving.
And, yeah, so
Yeah.
this would be sometime later in the year, but
Yeah,
we're,
the good news is the Planning and Zoning Committee is addressing various elements of the master plan. And so the fact that you guys are putting this together, even though it sounds like it's slow, you may be ahead of some of the other elements, because it does take a while. They all have to be authored.
at the
so.
same time.
And we believe it's section 10, at least that's what it's been in a lot of other towns, so that's why we called it section 10.
Okay.
That can be edited.
whatever section we need it to be.
Section 10.
What's us?
Okay.
So that's kind of the rough time frame to give everyone, this is an ongoing project, it's a long process, but we're on the right track. So, just to kind of give everyone a reference. So, please review this, please send in your comments, revisions, and then we'll bring it up on the next agenda on the 20th of May.
Sounds good.
All right, any other questions regarding this, any, other than, wow, guys, great job. Lots
I already said that.
I know, but I'm saying it again.
It is, it's fantastic. It's
Okay,
really impressive.
with that, time for public comment. Would anyone like to give any comments from the public? No?
I think you missed an agenda item.
Oh, did I? Oh, wait, I did miss one. We have one subcommittee update. I don't know if there's been any update on the pump house. I apologize. So is there anything to report regarding the pump house?
I don't have anything to report.
Nothing to report?
That's fine.
That's fine then. Nothing to report?
We've been, I did go down to the pump house and take some more photographs last week, and met with Janine Bauer. We're looking around the property and just coming up with some ideas, and we had an invitation from Sal Renda, the engineer, to maybe meet with them and come up with a...
Microphone.
You need a
please.
microphone.
Sorry.
Sorry.
We did have an invitation via email to meet with the engineer, Sal Renda, and discuss possibilities for memorializing the pump house. Last week, I actually took a couple of the new photographs and came up with some potential sketches so that we could kind of build up to a presentation sometime in the near future, but we're still working on a time frame for that. But I do have some, so I've been moving some things along in that regard, but nothing officially to report tonight, but hopefully at the May meeting, I'll have more of a full report.
Okay. Well, thank you for that update. Appreciate it. All right, so subcommittee updates, public comments, I think we've addressed that. None at the time. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second it.
Second. Meeting adjourned.
I forgot to.
I know.